Have you ever walked into a place and felt like you didn't exist? Not in the philosophical sense. Questioning your place in the vast universe. No, this was different. You're standing there, fully present, breathing flesh and bone, and yet people look right through you like you're nothing more than a shadow. That was exactly how Malcolm Carter felt this morning. And not just anywhere. He felt it in a hotel that bore his own logo. Astoria Lux, Westbridge, Illinois branch. One of the crown jewels of the five-star hotel chain Malcolm had built from scratch. A place that prided itself on the motto, precision in every detail, service fit for royalty. And yet, lately, complaints have started trickling in. Not just one or two, but a steady stream. Guests of color being ignored, treated differently. Staff acting aloof, sometimes downright condescending. That was not how Malcolm ran his empire. Normally, he would have sent an internal audit team, a few emails, a Zoom call. Things would go back to normal. But not this time. His instincts told him something deeper was rotting from within, and he no longer believed in solving problems from behind a screen. So he came, alone, no chauffeur, no assistant, no suit, no name badge. Just a 47-year-old man in dark jeans, a khaki jacket, and a pair of scuffed brown leather loafers. He arrived as a regular guest, under the name Malcolm A., the same name on his reservation email. The moment he stepped into the lobby, something felt cold, not in temperature, but in energy. The front desk gleamed. A crystal chandelier sparkled overhead, its reflection shimmering across the polished marble floor. But behind the desk stood a blonde girl with her hair tied high, hunched over her phone, tapping, scrolling, texting, like chatting with her boyfriend mattered more than acknowledging a guest's presence. Malcolm stood at the counter. 30 seconds, a full minute. No greeting, no glance. He cleared his throat softly. She looked up, bleary-eyed and visibly uninterested. Yeah, not welcome to Astoria. Not, how can I help you, sir? Just, yeah. Dry as desert air, colder than a freezer. Malcolm smiled, steadying his voice. I have a reservation. Malcolm Carter. The girl, her name tag read Brittany, turned slowly to her monitor. She typed with the speed of a sleepy snail. No booking under that name. Sorry. You sure? Malcolm asked, his tone calm, even. Pretty sure, Brittany replied, already drifting back to her phone, as if the entire exchange had been a minor inconvenience. And in that very moment, Malcolm knew the problem wasn't the system. The problem was the people. He remained still, both hands resting lightly on the cool marble countertop. He studied Brittany, the blonde girl with the empty stare and the mannerisms of someone who clearly thought he was disrupting an important virtual date. He had seen her type before, hundreds of times throughout his career. The kind who make up their minds in under 5 seconds, based on skin color, clothes, hairstyle, and instantly shove people into a box built from stereotypes. Could you check again? Malcolm asked, still keeping the calm, measured tone of someone who'd spent a lifetime teaching young employees what professionalism really meant. Brittany didn't respond. She just shrugged, took a slow pull on her peppermint gum, and lazily tapped a few keys. Nope, still not in the system. Maybe you booked the wrong branch? Could be you're at the wrong place, uncle. That word, uncle, landed like a paper cut. Malcolm took a deep breath. I have the confirmation email. He pulled out his phone and held up the screen, his name, date, and reservation number clearly visible. Brittany glanced at it, without even bothering to reach out. Well, that's not what the system says. Might be a mistake on your end. A mistake on my end? Malcolm raised an eyebrow. Don't you think you should double-check with your manager? Brittany gave a dry chuckle. You think I need to bother my boss over a lost booking? Trust me, they've got better things to do. There was something in her voice, a mix of impatience and casual arrogance, that brought Malcolm back to his early days in industry, back when a black man in a sharp suit was still asked to show a meeting invite before being allowed into a boardroom. He had risen above all that, and now, standing inside a hotel he had built with his own hands, he was once again being treated like he didn't belong. Brittany turned her chair to the side, already back on her phone. You should probably call customer service or something. I can't really help you beyond this." Malcolm said nothing, not because he had nothing to say, but because he was choosing his response carefully. He had learned long ago that power didn't always come from raising your voice, but from knowing when to say nothing and let the silence speak. He stepped back from the counter, eyes still fixed on Brittany. "Thank you," he said, his voice strangely calm. "You've helped me see the problem more clearly than I expected." Brittany didn't even look up. "Okay, can you move over there so you're not blocking the counter?" Malcolm turned and walked slowly toward the elevator. But in his mind, a plan was already taking shape. And it wasn't just about Brittany Summers. It was about the system, about how people like her managed to thrive and survive in an industry that branded itself on exceptional service. The elevator doors opened. Malcolm stepped inside, his eyes sharp with the clarity of a man who had already seen the whole chessboard. The game had begun. As the door slid shut behind Malcolm Carter, he didn't press the button to his room. Instead, he selected the executive utility floor, reserved for VIP guests and upper management. Even without a room key from the front desk, Malcolm knew every inch of this hotel. He had designed it himself. A narrow hallway behind the second-floor lounge led to a private boardroom, rarely used. He stepped inside, gently closed the door behind him, and let his mind continue ticking like a precision machine. Throughout his entire career, Malcolm had learned one fundamental truth. To fix injustice, you have to get to the root. And this time, the root sat behind the front desk, wore a name tag that read Brittany Summers, and deleted reservations with a keystroke full of prejudice. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a second phone, one reserved for special situations. The screen lit up, and within a few taps, Malcolm was logged into the internal management system of Astoria Lux, the luxury hotel chain he had founded, majority-owned, and currently served as CEO. He navigated straight to the system logs for room reservations. There was Malcolm Carter, booking code AC 10473. Just as he suspected, the status had been changed from confirmed to canceled, manual. Beside it, a tiny note read, "Deleted by Brittany Summers. Time, 6:42 p.m. Malcolm let out a quiet chuckle. He wasn't surprised in the slightest. He scrolled further down. Cancellation reason, unspecified. No explanation. No system error. Just deleted, and deliberately so. "Every move counts, young lady," he murmured, then pulled a laptop from his carry-on. He needed the full picture, and what he saw made him raise an eyebrow. This wasn't the first time. Brittany Summers' name showed up repeatedly in internal complaints. Guests denied service without explanation. Staff ignoring protocol. Guests of color reporting discriminatory treatment at check-in. Across multiple reports, the phrase "handled by Brittany" surfaced like a recurring red flag. Malcolm tilted his head. "And no one's touched her?" A few internal notes popped up in the employee records. Supervisor, Elliot Granger, general manager. That name was all too familiar. Elliot, the manager who always stayed quiet when guests complained. The one who avoided conflict to protect himself. The kind of leader who believed not rocking the boat was the same as keeping it afloat. Malcolm closed the laptop. It was clear now. An unethical employee, an incompetent manager, and a system quietly rotting from the inside out. He hadn't come here just to check in. He'd come to uncover everything. He returned to the front desk. Brittany was still glued to her phone, unaware that the man she had dismissed was walking straight toward her. "Excuse me, Brittany," Malcolm said calmly. "I have a professional question for you." She looked up, blinking. "Yes." If an employee deletes a legitimate reservation from the system without a valid reason, what happens? She hesitated for just a beat, then shrugged. The system logs every action. If it's discovered, that person might get written up or fired. Malcolm smiled and held up his phone, screen facing her. Her name and the deletion entry were clear as day. Brittany froze. The color drained from her face. "Do you have anything you'd like to add?" he asked, his voice steady, his gaze direct but not angry. Who are you?" she stammered. "The person you deleted from the system," he said calmly, "and the person you'll soon be explaining yourself to." before the board of directors. The entire front lobby fell silent. Brittany Summers stood frozen, her face drained of color, like she'd just seen a ghost step out of the elevator. But Malcolm Carter, poised, coldly composed, tilted his head slightly, as if asking a formal question. "You're still certain you didn't delete my name from the system?" Brittany swallowed hard. Her hand gripped her phone, like it was the last solid thing anchoring her. I don't remember doing that." Malcolm said nothing. He turned the phone back toward himself and tapped through a few more screens. The display lit up, showing a system access log. User, B. Summers action. Delete reservation time. 6:42 p.m. location. Front desk terminal 3. This wasn't just evidence. It was a digital indictment. Malcolm turned the screen once more, raising it higher this time so others in the lobby could see. Murmurs began to rise, soft at first, like small waves brushing a rocky shore. An older guest seated on a nearby couch frowned. "What's going on? Who is he?" Malcolm Carter stood tall, his gaze sweeping across the room. He knew it was time to reveal who he truly was. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said clearly, "allow me to introduce myself. I'm Malcolm Carter, owner of this hotel chain." A ripple of shock surged through the lobby. Some guests gasped, others whispered. A young woman near the check-in line blurted out, "Oh my God, that is Mr. Carter!" The air seemed to thin. A hush spread to the guests nearby. A middle-aged couple exchanged wide-eyed glances. A bellhop stopped mid-step, clutching a suitcase like it might fall from his hand. And the night shift receptionist, arrive and take over, instinctively stepped back half a pace. At that moment, Malcolm looked up at the security camera on the ceiling and gave a subtle nod, a signal long prepared. Seconds later, a middle-aged man in a blue dress shirt stepped out from behind the administrative wing. Victor Tran, Regional Director of Internal Compliance for the Western Division. "We recorded all system activity," Victor said firmly, "as well as video footage of this interaction. Brittany Summers, you have committed a serious violation of professional ethics." I didn't mean to," Brittany stammered. Maybe it was just a system error. Malcolm's expression tightened. "You deliberately deleted a confirmed guest reservation. You refused to double-check even after being shown proof. Then you assigned the worst available room in this hotel as an insult. So tell me, was this a mistake or a personal policy toward guests who look like me?" Brittany said nothing. She stood there, every muscle seemingly turned to stone. Malcolm turned to face her directly, his voice steady, unwavering. "Brittany Summers, you are terminated. Immediately. And this action will be permanently recorded in your corporate HR file." Victor raised his hand, signaling the security staff, "Please escort her off the premises. HR will follow up regarding all paperwork and final procedures." "Wait," Brittany blurted out. "Why make such a big deal out of this? It was just a small mistake." "You picked the wrong man to underestimate," Victor replied, his eyes never leaving Malcolm. As two security guards stepped forward, Brittany looked around, desperate for support. But no one moved, not even Elliot Granger, the hotel manager who had quietly crept out his office, did anything. He simply stood there, frozen like a statue, knowing the moment of reckoning had come. After revealing his true identity, Malcolm Carter didn't waste a second. He stepped up onto the check-in platform, where every eye remained fixed on him in stunned awe and rising admiration. With a voice that was both warm and commanding, he made an announcement. Effective immediately, Astoria Lux Westbridge will temporarily close for a comprehensive review. We will reevaluate every employee, every procedure, and every part of our service. I want to ensure that every guest, regardless of skin color or background, is treated with respect and professionalism. A heavy silence fell over the lobby, broken only by hushed murmurs. A middle-aged man near the front desk nodded in agreement. It's about time something changed. Elliot Granger finally stepped forward, his face still pale. "Mr. Carter, I'll fully support the process in any way I can." Malcolm nodded. "Good. Manager Granger, is it? We'll begin with an all-staff meeting tomorrow morning." I want to hear directly from the team and work together to rebuild this hotel service culture. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call to human resources. Prepare an independent audit team. I want this process to be transparent and fair. All around, staff began to stir. Some exchanged anxious glances. Others let out quiet sighs of relief. A housekeeping staffer whispered to a colleague, "Maybe now we'll finally get to work in a place that's actually fair." Malcolm turned back to the lobby, where a few guests still lingered, watching. He smiled. "I apologize for the inconvenience. All current guests will receive full refunds and assistance with rebooking at our other locations. We are committed to coming back stronger with the service you truly deserve." Applause broke out from several guests, their support clear and heartfelt. A few approached to shake Malcolm's hand, offering words of appreciation. He turned once more to the crowd with a final message. "I want everyone to know, discrimination of any kind has no place in my system. Every guest deserves dignity and wholehearted service." Malcolm smiled, but inside he knew the real work was just beginning. He had to ensure that the values he believed in would take root throughout every corner of his hotel empire. He turned to Elliot. "Now, we need to have a talk." Elliot nodded stiffly, his lips pressed tight. Malcolm knew this was only the first step, but with resolve and the backing of both his staff and his guests. He was confident Storia Lux would rise again, a symbol of positive change in the hospitality industry. Malcolm Carter stood at the door of the hotel manager's office, his gaze unwavering. He had just endured a tense confrontation with Brittany Summers, the front desk clerk who had deliberately deleted his reservation. Now, he was preparing to meet with Elliot Granger, the hotel manager, to address the situation head-on. Elliot, a man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and a neatly pressed suit, opened the door and gestured for Malcolm to enter. He looked visibly unsettled at the sight of Malcolm, but maintained a polite demeanor. "Mr. Carter, I didn't expect to see you here. I'm deeply sorry for what just happened." Malcolm didn't waste time with pleasantries. He placed his phone on the desk, the screen displaying the clear evidence that Brittany had removed his reservation from the system. "Mr. Granger, I came here to investigate complaints about discriminatory treatment at this hotel, and I've now experienced it myself." Elliot looked down at the screen. His expression shifted dramatically. I wasn't aware of this. I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter." Malcolm's voice remained calm, but his tone was firm. "An apology isn't enough. I want to know how an employee like Brittany could behave this way without being flagged." Elliot hesitated. I'll launch an internal review and take appropriate action." Malcolm stood up, his gaze sharpening. "I will personally oversee it. If you're unable to ensure fairness and professionalism in this hotel, I'll find someone who can." Elliot nodded, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "I understand, Mr. Carter. I won't let you down." Malcolm exited the office, leaving Elliot standing alone, deep in thought about everything that had just unfolded. He knew that from this moment forward, everything was about to change. Under the soft golden light of the Astoria Lux Executive Suite, Malcolm Carter sat in front of his computer, fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. Hundreds of customer feedback entries from the past 6 months filled the screen. Every complaint, every frustrated comment, every suggestion that had once been ignored. But not this time. Not a single one would be forgotten. He carefully categorized the complaints. Unprofessional attitudes at the front desk, guests of color repeatedly being placed in the worst rooms. A special task force, handpicked by Malcolm himself, had already begun reaching out to affected guests, offering formal apologies and tailored compensation, complimentary future stays, room upgrades, or full refunds, depending on each case. In a full staff meeting, Malcolm announced a sweeping set of new policies. All employees would be required to attend training on equity and bias-free service. Key positions would be reassessed by an independent review board. And most significantly, guests could now submit anonymous reviews directly to the executive office, bypassing local management entirely. Anyone who disrespected guests based on their skin color, gender, social class, or background, he emphasized, will have no place in this hotel chain. "We're not just fixing what's broken," he said in the leadership meeting that followed. We're building a system where such failures can no longer survive. And during that same hotel leadership meeting, manager Elliot Granger was asked to remain behind. Malcolm handed him a printed report, an internal audit detailing repeated violations throughout Elliot's tenure. "I've read every line," Malcolm said, his voice low but weighty. "This isn't just about one incident. It's a pattern, a long chain of neglect, cover-ups, and passive leadership." Elliot stammered, I know things got out of hand, but I never intended." "It's exactly that lack of intention," Malcolm interrupted, "that makes it inexcusable in a system built on accountability." The room fell completely silent, broken only by the ticking of a wall clock. Finally, Malcolm set the paper down. "Elliot, you once had a chance to do the right thing, but you stayed quiet when it mattered most, and I can no longer entrust any property under my name to someone who chooses inaction." No shouting, no rage, just truth, delivered clearly and coldly. Elliot understood. He rose slowly and gave a reluctant nod. "I understand. Thank you for the opportunity to serve here." Malcolm nodded in return. No smile, only solemn acknowledgement. After Elliot exited, Malcolm turned to look out over the grand lobby below, where new staff were being retrained. Guests were now being greeted with dignity, and a new culture was starting to take root. He knew that building an empire didn't just require vision and capital. It took the courage to correct course, to make difficult decisions when no one else would. Malcolm stepped out of the office, head held high. In a world where injustice often hid beneath chandeliers and luxury slogans, he had chosen to stand with truth, not for applause, but because he understood human dignity is never up for negotiation. And in his empire, fairness wasn't a slogan, it was an unwritten law. As the sun dipped behind the high rises of downtown Westbridge, Malcolm stood by the window, a cup of hot tea in his hand. In his heart, there was both peace and a renewed sense of responsibility. He knew real change wouldn't come from a single termination or a well-worded speech. It would come from every small, repeated decision made right day after day. The hotel empire he had built was no longer just a place of luxury. It had become a symbol of respect and equity, and that more than anything else was a legacy he truly hoped to leave behind.